Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Sports Express podcast. I am Scott Johnston, your host as always, alongside Jamie, don't call me a Raiders fan, Zapata.
Yes, I'm not a Raiders fan. 49ers.
How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great.
Wow, that just blew our journalistic integrity out the window again. I'm just batting
Sorry
1,000.
about that. I apologize.
No, I shouldn't have even said that. But
it's all good. Have a little fun here.
If you notice, this is the show that, well, you wouldn't notice, but this is the show that we are taping the day before the Super Bowl. So we will open it up with some football talk for probably about the first half hour of today's show. And then we're actually going to talk some baseball with the head writer for MLB Trade Rumors.com, Ben Nicholson-Smith, who was on the show about 2 months ago prior to the Josh Hamilton and Zach Greinke deals and all of the major deals that have gone down in Major League Baseball since then. So we're going to catch up with him and get his thoughts on how all of these major moves that have happened since we've talked to him have changed the baseball landscape for the upcoming Major League season. And then also we will have a special Super Bowl wrap-up show coming your way later this week with about a half hour of our thoughts of the big game that will have happened already by the time you listen to this show. So that'll be coming at you as well. And then after that, we're just talking baseball, basketball, and I don't know, maybe a little NASCAR. We do have the Daytona 500 coming up. So we may talk a little bit about that, but we'll be done with football. Unless there's rumors in the off season, we'll be done with football for the most part for the next 6 months or so. But let's get it going here, Jamie, with some of your thoughts from Media Day. And let's start it off with the big gaffe, let's say, on the part of 49ers cornerback Chris Culliver, saying that he would not openly accept a gay teammate on the San Francisco 49ers. Kind of ironic, being that the 49ers do play in San Francisco, kind of the hotbed, if you were, for the gay community, and then having a player say that he would not openly accept a gay teammate. But what are some of your thoughts on that?
Definitely very ironic that he said that. I just don't understand what went on through his mind and what would make him make that type of comment. It really doesn't make sense, and it's a very dumb move on his part.
It is dumb. But here's my thinking on that. Okay, people are saying it shows a lack of compassion for the gay community with the fact that the 49ers haven't fined him or disciplined him in any way. But he has a right to say what he said. We may not agree with it. It may not be right. But he does have a right to say what he said. He came back and kind of backpedaled from that later in the week. But, you know, with all the talk of Second Amendment rights, and people are saying we want to preserve our Second Amendment rights, sometimes people can kind of forget that there is a First Amendment right that I think is probably the most important right that we as all Americans have, and that's the freedom of speech. We may not agree with what he said, but he has a right to say it. And I actually applaud the 49ers with the way they handled it. Yes, they were very disappointed in what he said, but I think they handled it the right way in not fining him or punishing him in any way, only because, like I said, as an American citizen, he has the right to say what he said. And if anything, I don't have an issue with what he said. I don't personally, agree with it. I think that we should be accepting of all people, but I have more of an issue with the question that was being asked. I feel honestly, I actually feel bad for Chris Culliver because there was no way that he could have answered that other than flat out lying that would have provided any protection from the media. Had he said what he said, he was going to get backlash, which he did. Had he said no comment, people would have read into that and said, oh, you think this way anyway. So, in my mind, the only way he could have avoided this whole thing was to just flat out lie. And I don't think you want, athletes or anybody to do that anyway.
Right. I still think the smartest move would have been a no comment. It's better to have people read into what you were thinking and
Right.
not know the absolute truth than to him just flat out say how he feels. And I totally agree with you. He has the right to say whatever he does. We don't have to agree with it. We don't have to like it, but he does have a right to say it. I just think that you know what stage you're on. Media
Right.
day, Super Bowl, you know what stage you're on. You have to have a little bit of some smarts to know that, hey, I can't be saying this on this platform.
Right, but here's the thing. The reason that question was asked of him was because the guy that asked it, I guess Artie Lang, or I don't even have a clue who this guy is.
I think he's, if it's the same guy that I'm thinking of, he worked with the Howard Stern show.
There you go. He asked this question of Chris Culliver because he knew that he was most likely going to get him to say something stupid. Because let's keep in mind that Chris Culliver, and not a lot of people know this, Chris Culliver is a young, I believe, second-year player that is not a starter, and he's not used to doing press conferences day in and day out like
Right.
the starters are. Yes, he's had some media training, but he's not used to that. And he's definitely not used to being on the stage of this huge media press conference that is, the Super Bowl.
Right.
That is media day at the Super Bowl. And I'm not defending what he said, but I guarantee you that question would not have been asked of Alex Smith or even Colin Kaepernick or Vernon Davis or Patrick Willis, because they wouldn't have gotten that response. That's why that question was asked of that particular player, or would have been asked of any other younger player, because they knew they could get him saying something stupid.
Right. Well, they figure they'll take a shot, and
Not something stupid, but something off the cuff.
Well, I'm sure they figure,
Unflattering as it will.
We'll take a shot. We'll ask him this, and worst case scenario, he doesn't answer it. And
Right.
and that's the thought process on asking that question. But this wasn't Culliver's first presser. This wasn't his
Right.
first interview. I'm sure he's done plenty in college, and even probably when he was in high school. It also won't be his last, but I definitely know that this wasn't his first interview. And there's a way of responding no comment without actually saying no comment. He could have been like, "Are you serious? Are you really asking me this question?" Okay, next one.
Right.
Next question.
Right. True.
I mean, I agree. He had the right to say it, but I don't. It was a stupid thing to say.
It was. And fortunately, he's going to go through a little sensitivity training, and I guess work with the Trevor Project which is a suicide prevention program for gay and lesbian and transgender youth in San Francisco, or actually all over the country. But he's gonna go through some training, and hopefully something like this doesn't happen again.
He definitely needs to clean up that image after that response.
Right. I mean,
And it sounds like he's taking the steps to go ahead and do that.
yeah, but, I mean, to me though, it's just, and not saying what he said was right or wrong, because like I said, he has a right to say what he said, but it's so unfortunate that we are so politically correct as a society that whether we agree with somebody's opinions or not, they have to be vilified if the larger majority population doesn't happen to agree with those comments. Like I said, I personally think, everybody should be accepting of everybody, whether we necessarily agree with their lifestyle or not. We should just not accept them, but I guess the word is accept them. Accept them as human beings.
Right.
I was looking for another word, I guess, but I guess that was the word. Anyway,
you had it all along.
Yeah, that's my thought on that. And like I said, it's unfortunate, but that's what happened. Chris Culver, though, was not the only 49er to kind of stir the pot at Media Day. Randy Moss decided that Media Day was the right time to claim his stake as the greatest wide receiver of all time. And he obviously didn't care that there was another wide receiver that came before him that played in San Francisco for 16 years that I don't care who you are, anybody that follows football, whether you're anybody that's a coach, a player, a fan, somebody in the front office. I think there is massive agreement across the board that Mr. 80, Jerry Rice, is the greatest wide receiver ever to play the game. And Randy Moss says, nope, it's me. I've changed the game. What do you think about that?
You can't help but laugh at that comment because it's not even close.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. Honestly, when I first saw it and I watched the coverage live on NFL.com, it didn't come off as arrogant, to be honest. It seemed to me that it came off as confident.
Right.
But then the more I watch it, the more I kind of think, maybe he was a little arrogant.
You know what? It's not even close if you look at the stats side by side. Not even close.
Right.
Randy Moss would probably have to play another 8 years to come close to what Jerry Rice
accomplished. But Randy Moss says, it's not all about stats. Look at what I did. I changed the game. And to be honest, I don't think Randy Moss really did change the game all that much. Because Jerry Rice changed the game so much before Randy Moss was even in the league.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's a stat that they have because of Jerry Rice. It's YAC, yards after catch.
Right.
He's the reason for that stat. Not Randy Moss. Randy Moss, that wasn't his thing. His was the deep route. There's been plenty of other guys before him who, as a matter of fact, one of his teammates who was a deep threat. Chris Carter.
Yeah.
Who
should still be in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And let's hope he gets elected tonight.
Yes.
Or this afternoon, because those are going to be announced at 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific. So we'll be watching those and we'll also talk about those on our Super Bowl wrap-up show as well. We'll recap who got elected to the Hall of Fame.
But in Randy Moss's defense, I feel the same way you did when you first saw it. He's confident and maybe a little bit arrogant. But when you're a wide receiver, anytime you're a receiver or a cornerback, you need to have that confidence.
Right.
Because that kind of separates you from the rest. And, I don't mind that. You know what? If you feel like that, Moss, I don't agree with it, but if you feel like that, go ahead. Just
right. Again,
show me on Sunday.
Like with Chris Culver. You have the right to say what you said. We may not agree with it, but you have the right to say what you said.
Yeah, so go ahead. You're the man? You change the game? Well, change it on Sunday. Show me.
Yeah.
Go out there and put up 3 touchdowns.
Right. and make 25 catches. I don't
4,000 yards.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think Randy Moss has that in him anymore. And to be honest, Randy Moss in his prime never held a candle to Jerry Rice.
No, not at all. If that's what he needs to say to get him going for this game,
why not?
Then by all means, get it done.
Yeah, get her done.
But that wasn't the comment that stuck out to me from him from Media Day. Do you remember the other comment? I don't like my role on this team. When he said that about the 49ers,
right.
He doesn't like his role on the team. He doesn't think that if he comes back next year, it won't be with the 49ers because I don't like my role on this team. Well, that's the comment that stuck out to me.
Come on.
Because that's more disturbing to what you're going to be doing on Super Bowl Sunday than this me versus Jerry Rice.
Randy, I'm talking right to you now. I know you're not listening to this, but I'm talking to you anyway. You are not a number one receiver anymore. You are a role player. That's what you are. The 49ers are using you like you should be used because that's what you are. You are a 35-year-old aging wide receiver who has 2 to 3 years at best left in you.
Right. That's the comment that just, wow, for me. Because I'm like, that's a potential distraction for the Super Bowl.
That's kind of surprising because Randy,
he's been great all season.
Yeah, all season he seems like he's been a team player and, has been great supporting Colin Kaepernick. And let's pump up Alex Smith, even though he's the backup. We still love him. And, has been a great veteran leader on this team. And then he goes and says that?
Were these comments after or before Culliver's comments?
To be honest, I don't know because
pretty close, right?
I didn't see the Chris Culliver comments live. I don't think NFL Network covered those live.
Mm-hmm. I just wonder if Randy Moss is like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and raise the ruckus a little bit and get the attention off someone else.
Get the attention off Culliver?
Yeah, or
maybe.
I don't know.
You're right. The timing is just really odd. If you're gonna make a stink in October.
Right.
Don't do it now.
Like Super Bowl, really?
Yeah. Don't do it now.
It's kind of odd.
Right.
He's an odd guy, though. I mean, and I say that with all due respect.
Yeah,
I mean,
talking about bad seafood or whatever. I don't think he's gotten any of that in San Francisco, though. The seafood's probably pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh.
Top notch.
And also, we'll wrap up the 49er portion of Media Day with this, and then go over to the Ray Lewis portion, or the Ravens portion with Ray Lewis, and Alex Smith. How impressed were you with the way Alex Smith handled Media Day and the way his comments, or the way he handled the questions about whether he thinks he should be the starter for this team for the Super Bowl?
The guy is the pure definition of professional.
Mm-hmm.
Class act. I mean, I can't say anything more about him and the way he handled Media Day. I really hope that next season he goes somewhere where he can help out a team and I really hope he does well. The guy deserves it.
Yeah, and he doesn't get a podium, and Deion Sanders was not happy about that. If you saw that.
Oh yeah, right.
Deion was almost, I would say, livid that Alex Smith did not get a podium. He said, that's not right, man. In Prime's typical bravado. But again, Alex Smith, he's a leader on that team, and you may not like him as a player. You may not think he's the most talented quarterback, but I just have all the respect in the world for that guy. Personally, even as a player, I've always kind of been an Alex Smith backer because I've seen, even when he was a rookie, I'd seen those flashes of what he could be. And unfortunately, I think it came a little too late in his career to finally get the coach to work with him and help him develop as a quarterback. But we saw what he could do with a coach like Norv Turner in 2006, the one year that he actually had a good coach that was good at developing young quarterbacks. But Alex Smith has always been a class act. And like you, I just hope he can go somewhere next year and get a starting job. And who knows, maybe meet the Niners in the Super Bowl next year.
That would be an interesting storyline.
And like I said, when training camp was starting, didn't I call that I thought the Niners would pull a circa 1992 move and trade him to the Kansas City Chiefs? I don't know whether you heard about this, but there is a rumor that Andy Reid wants Alex Smith in Kansas City next year.
Oh, wow.
And he almost tried to sign him as a free agent in Philadelphia last year.
Jeez. You know, I'll go back to before the season started and when the rumors were flying that the Niners were interested in Peyton Manning and how he was, Alex, prior to that, a few weeks prior to that, Alex was told he was the guy. He's our guy. And Peyton Manning fell through. Alex Smith is the guy. Was the guy for a few games. How many?
9, 8.
Right.
Yeah, because season's 16 games long.
He's about halfway through the season. He was the guy.
That was week 10, so 9 games. 8.5 actually, to be precise.
So he was the guy for about half the season, and then all of a sudden he gets injured and
he's not the guy.
Was no longer the guy. And the guy didn't complain.
Right.
And didn't go to the writers and go off.
He's done a fantastic job of just rolling with the punches.
Yeah.
He's been through so much
and,
with coach after coach. Even the coach that drafted him, Mike Nolan, dragging him through the mud, which I thought was kind of strange because, to be honest, I never even really heard about any of that when all that was going on. It was kind of like I heard about that after the fact. I don't know whether you heard anything about that while it was going on. But then it was like all of a sudden, Mike Nolan's questioning Alex Smith's toughness. And it's like, where is this coming from? And he has just handled all of that in spades. And so, you know what? I hope he goes somewhere else next year and finally finds a home and is able to say, you know what? This is finally 100% my team, and I'm going to take you guys as far as you'll let me. And as far as the coaching staff will, allow me to work and develop in this offense.
One quick point on what kind of person he is. He's the reason why there was a connection and kind of like I guess you say a brotherhood between the San Francisco Giants and the San Francisco 49ers.
Right.
He was the first guy at his presser to wear a San Francisco Giants hat.
Which the NFL has banned him from doing.
And he got fined for it. So he was so supportive of the Giants and their run. And then, next thing you know, Bochy returns the favor and starts wearing a 49er cap. And it was just love between both organizations.
And then you see Sergio Romo during media day tweet out about the Niners. And Sergio Romo, the reliever for the Giants, and this is perfect. This brings in our baseball for today. But Sergio Romo tweets out about the Giants during media day. I see at the bottom of the screen, "Go Niners, represent San Fran."
And that all goes back to Alex Smith and how he brings San Francisco together, both organizations. And I mean, There's just a bunch of things we could say great about the guy.
Right, and to the point where I was kind of thinking, I wonder if, because there is that brotherhood between the two teams in the city, I wonder if the Giants would maybe postpone the reporting dates for the guys to spring training in Arizona if the 49ers won, to let them go to the parade.
Oh, that would be awesome. I hope so, because I think if the 49ers were to win, and we'll know by the time this airs, that the Giants drive some cars around just like the 49er, just like Alex Smith, Harbaugh, and others drove cars for the carrying the
Right.
Giants players
Right.
and coaching staff.
Right.
So yeah, I would hope so, because they need to return the favor
Yeah.
if the 49ers win.
Right. And since we're still talking about the Niners real quick, first of all, this is something I wanted to bring up months ago when it happened, but what do you think about the commissioner banning or fining Alex Smith particularly, or any other player, for wearing a non-NFL hat in their pressers? I personally think it's ridiculous. Come on.
I'm right there with you. I don't understand it. And it's probably something I won't ever understand, because I'm not a player. I'm not in there. I don't know exactly what goes on, but to me it doesn't make any sense. Gore gets fined for having a socks low because
Right.
they fall down.
But yet Tom Brady is fined $500 less for inadvertently, and I don't think he did it on purpose, sliding into Ed Reed
yeah.
the way he did. And Frank Gore gets $500 more in a fine for having his socks too low.
Yeah, it's just little stuff like that doesn't make sense to me. But like I said, I'm not a player. I don't know exactly everything that goes into that. But from the outside, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows who's watching, if Alex Smith or Kaepernick or whoever's wearing Giants hat, I think they know that they're NFL players. You don't need to protect the brand that much.
Right, and I had another point about the Niners, but yeah, I completely lost it. And I'll say this about the commissioner, and it's been said that he is the least popular commissioner ever, and there's actually data to back that up. He went on with Rich Eisen yesterday. This was Friday. And had an interview after his State of the NFL address that he does every year at the Super Bowl. And Rich Eisen asked him about Super Bowl 48. That's going to be the first outside Super Bowl, I think, probably since it started in the 60s. Typically, the NFL has a rule that if it's going to be outside, it has to be at a warm weather city. Or, we have it indoors where it's 70 degrees and nice. And Joe Flacco came out this week and said that a cold weather Super Bowl is quote unquote retarded. And then he retracted it and said stupid because, well, that's not PC. And I think that was the wrong word choice, but I'm right there with him. I think that if you're playing in the Super Bowl, you've kind of earned the right to have nice weather. But the commissioner, Rich Eisen, was talking to him about the weather. He says, I was noticing the weather for New York this week. 34 degrees and snow. He says, now, the Super Bowl next year is going to be in New York. Do you, as the commissioner, if you see that weather report next year, do you think about moving it possibly? Or do you still want it to be played? He said, with that weather forecast, sign me up.
Wow. Really?
Sign me up. That was his exact words. And I was thinking, you're not the one playing it.
There's so much more to the Super Bowl than the game. There's halftime entertainment. There's the whole week leading up to the Super Bowl, and there's so much going on than just the game. And if
I agree.
you're not having snow just that day, odds are you've been having it. And wow.
I just thought that was awfully kind of pompous of the commissioner.
Yes.
And a little short-sighted. Because to be honest, it's like, you're not the one playing the game. You're not the one covering it.
I understand wanting to have it in New York. I get that.
Well, no, he just likes, and I sort of agree. He says the elements are part of the game. And I agree with that. But this is the biggest game of the year. Do you really want the elements to play into that? I wouldn't, because it decides who's a champion.
There's a lot of money to be made in this week, this Super Bowl week. And you don't want weather to hurt your money in any sort of way. And then what's going to happen is poor fans. What happens if for some reason you can't get a flight in?
Right.
Or other things happen, and it's just like, do you really want to alienate the fans more than you have already?
Right.
Wow, that's. I hope everything goes off great, but if it doesn't,
we'll see.
It's a lesson for him.
We'll see. Yeah, there's a lot of things that this commissioner's done that I've kind of been like, wow, really? At first, when he started finding guys for disciplinary actions, I'm like, okay, that's good. Clean the game up a little bit. But I think my opinion, it's just my opinion, he's gotten a little power hungry.
It sounds like it.
He's gone a little too far, in my opinion. Anyway, I don't know. But let's wrap it up with a little Ravens talk and some stuff that went on with them at Media Day. And these two things in particular have to do with Mr. Raven, Ray Lewis. And he was there making his media availability, and you knew it was going to happen sooner or later. In fact, I think it was the first question that was asked. It was a question about the murder trial that happened 13 years ago during the Ravens' first Super Bowl run with Brian Billick and Trent Dilfer and Ray Lewis. And Ray Lewis took a plea deal and testified against the other two guys that were also acquitted of the murder charge. He was never charged with anything. But yet, the first question that he has to answer at Media Day, at the Super Bowl, 13 years later, was about the murder trial. Do you think that's fair?
Not at all. But you know what? These kind of questions that you get with Culliver, Lewis, it's expected in this type of setting. I don't think it's right, but when you and I think we touched on it last week, is when Media Day is not for actual media.
It's kind of a stretch.
You're kind of putting yourself out there for this kind of nonsense.
And even Rich Eisen kind of talked about it during the broadcast. He had the head of communications and PR for the Cowboys on there as an analyst. And he says, what do you kind of tell the players to kind of prepare them for this whole atmosphere? And he says, I tell them these are professionals. They're getting paid to do a job. So you need to be cordial with them and work with them to allow them to do their jobs. And then Rich Eisen cuts to commercial. And he says, so you're telling me that person on the right is getting paid to be here and do a job? And it was a guy dressed up as a clown in a cowboy hat from, I think, like Azteca TV or something like that. one of the Spanish language channels.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Doing like rock, paper, scissors with Ray Lewis. And it's like, all right,
getting paid to do his job.
That's me today.
Some real in-depth reporting right there.
Quality workmanship.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was the cut to commercial.
But that's what it is now. So yeah, that's a tough first question. I mean,
and then there was the whole deer antler thing.
Yeah.
With the story of SI came out with, granted, 2 days before the Super Bowl, that apparently the Ravens organization knew about and said, if it did happen, happened 2 years ago. And they said, I don't think it did happen. But that story's 2 years old. And it came out 2 days before the Super Bowl. And even some of the commentators that are also writers for NFL.com, one in particular, Ian Rappaport, said on air, and granted, he's supposed to remain unbiased, but he even said, yeah, I know this guy. He's come around before and tried, I guess he has holographic stickers that were supposed to increase performance or whatever. And he says, he's put it on my back before and asked me if I felt anything. And I didn't. He said, this guy, kind of said, yeah, this guy's kind of a charlatan, just trying to look for media attention. But what do you think about that whole story, Jamie?
After what you just said, I don't know what to think. I mean, I do think that maybe the NFL needs to broaden their testing.
But here's the thing. I don't know whether that is going to necessarily enhance performance. It may just allow guys to recover faster and heal their bodies, which may be a good thing. Granted, there needs to be science and testing done on those products. But if that's the case, what's wrong with it?
I agree. But I think they need to broaden the testing because it's, how do I put this? The NFL is becoming bigger, faster, stronger, and you can only have so much equipment on you to withstand some of the hits that are taken.
Mm-hmm.
And if that stuff is happening because of certain supplements,
right,
then you need to kind of slow that down.
Right. But kind of interesting, they said the deer antlers are the fastest growing organisms on planet Earth.
It's the first time I ever heard of deer antler spray.
I think I'd heard about it a while back. And I think I'd heard about it when this story first came out.
When you use it?
Oh, yeah, because I use it every day.
As Scotty Kaepernick's.
Yeah, I just kiss the guns. Oh,
you kiss that. He's kissing his tattoo sleeves on his bicep.
Please, I'm not even cool enough to have those. Oh. Oh my gosh. Oh.
So you've heard about that before?
I think so. Yeah. Anyway.
See, I had no knowledge of that. I'm like, what? Deer antler? What?
Deer antler spray. Yep. I don't know whether they crush up the deer antlers and like make it into a powder and then turn it into a spray or what, but yeah, it's kind of crazy.
One thing about Super Bowl is media day, and the whole week, or I guess you say 2 weeks before prior, you can count on just about anything coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. I think you'd think they'd tone it down at some point and kind of keep it to and this is kind of horrible because I don't know how you could qualify that, but if there's a way you can, legitimate media,
Legitimate media day.
or no, I mean not necessarily legitimate media day, but only inviting legitimate media.
Okay.
uh, your ESPNs, your Sports Illustrated, and not having clowns out there.
Hey, well, if there was anyone who was hoping to not hear about the Harbaugh brothers,
The Super Bowl is what I call it.
The Super Bowl, yeah, you name it. If they didn't want to hear that,
why do you come
into the Super Bowl? Then you got your stories,
right?
Because
yeah,
it took away from that.
It definitely did
for a little bit.
Right.
bit. I mean, it's always going to be.
I mean,
there
I don't even think that to a point that Extra or the insiders are like, what are they doing at the Super Bowl? Like, they don't care about the Super Bowl.
My buddy Mario Lopez out there.
Seriously?
No, I don't
know. Oh, jeez.
I just like saying Mario Lopez.
Okay, we won't get into that. Oh,
man.
Oh, by the way, that is one thing that I think the commissioner got right during his State of the NFL address, was saying that HGH testing for the NFL is most likely on its way for this coming season.
And that's good.
And thanks to Major League Baseball, hands off to Major League Baseball, or hats off, actually. Hands off. Yeah. By the way, I just pretended to take my hands off and throw them across the room. No.
At me.
I did not. I threw them at the wall. Anyway, hats off to Major League Baseball for really pushing the envelope and allowing science to grow in that area. So other leagues like the NFL could benefit from that as well. And I think that is the perfect segue for our guest today, Ben Nicholson-Smith, from MLB Trade Rumors, the head writer for MLB Trade Rumors. And we will be talking about baseball for the rest of the day. So, here we go. Thanks for being here today, Ben. And again, thanks for talking to us again. And we haven't talked since Thanksgiving, but I want to kind of get your thoughts on the Dodgers and the Zach Greinke deal, and how you think that could possibly change the race in the NL West and even the race for the playoffs.
I think it's a definite game changer. You look at that rotation right now with Kershaw, Greinke, and a lot of the other arms that they've added in the last year or so, Capuano, Harang, Beckett. It's a pretty deep group, and I think that that's a rotation that could lead a team to the playoffs. You combine that with the lineup that they have, and I think that overall this is an above-average ball club and one that definitely should contend for the playoffs in the NL West in 2013.
Hey, Ben. This is Jamie here. Since we're talking about the Dodgers, I haven't heard anything with the San Francisco Giants if they're signing Freddie Sanchez at all or what kind of contract he's trying to get. But I always thought that him being from L.A. would be a perfect fit with the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything on that possibility, so I'm not sure. But I think the Dodgers right now, you look at their second base situation. They got Mark Ellis. They got Skip Schumacher, who's pretty versatile, could handle second base. So I would imagine that they're probably pretty content going into spring training with their internal options. You never know what could happen along the line and when they might turn to somebody like a Freddie Sanchez. But at this point, no indication that that's something that's going to happen.
Right, and since we are talking about LA, let's make the jump over to Anaheim real quick and the Josh Hamilton deal. Kind of one of the surprises of the offseason. I know as an Angels fan, it shocked the heck out of me, especially considering they were thought to be the front runner for Zach Greinke, and also saying that Torrey Hunter was too expensive. They let him go to Detroit, and then they go out and give Josh Hamilton a 5-year, $75 million deal. What do you think about that, and how could that possibly change the race for the division and for the World Series in the AL West?
Well, it definitely makes a huge shift. Anytime you take an elite player and move him from one team to a different team within the same division, you're creating a big balance in power, a big shift in power. So I think that Josh Hamilton is going to help the Angels a lot in this year and in the coming years. I think you combine him with Albert Pujols, Mike Trout, Mark Trumbo. You've got a really powerful lineup. You've got a group that's going to score a lot of runs, I think. So you've got to watch out for the Angels. I don't think that the Rangers are getting quite enough credit for the pieces that they still have on that roster. I do think they're going to be a very good team in 2013, but hey, it's going to be tough for them to move on without Josh Hamilton and also having lost a number of players to free agency this year.
Do you think with Michael Bourne still out there, they could be a potential landing spot for Michael Bourne at this point?
I do think that that'd be a possibility. I think that you look around for potential spots for Bourne, you've got to look to the Rangers, I think the Mariners, and also the Mets as possibilities for him. So I don't get a clear sense that there's anything imminent with Bourne at this point, but he's got to be looking to Texas as one option.
Right, and going back to the Angels real quick, what do you think about that rotation? They traded Kendrys Morales to Seattle for Jason Vargas, and then they also signed Joe Blanton as possibly a fifth starter or a long man in the bullpen, and then they also picked up a few bullpen pieces, one in particular in Sean Burnett as well to kind of help out that bullpen. But what do you think about that rotation with Weaver at the top, C.J. Wilson, Jason Vargas, and then Joe Blanton, or possibly Garrett Richards in that 5 spot?
I think it's a good rotation. I wouldn't say that it's among the best in baseball, but I think that any group led by Weaver and C.J. Wilson is going to be pretty good. I think they needed to add to that group, and I think that it's probably a good thing that went out and got Blanton, got Vargas, got Tommy Hanson, some guys who can fill out the rotation, provide some innings, and just keep the Angels in games. So I don't project this to be an elite rotation, but I do think that it'll be a good one and one that can keep the Angels competing all year long.
Right, and I almost forgot about Tommy Hanson. What do you think that the Angels can expect to kind of get out of him? Do you think that they could kind of bring him back to being a rising and possibly even on the verge of being an elite starter?
I don't think that's a fair expectation. It's certainly possible. And you look at what Hanson did in Atlanta in the course of his career there, he has shown flashes of being close to a number one starter. So that's a possibility. He's still a young guy, but I don't think that that's how the industry views him at this point. I don't think that people expect Hanson to go out there and be a number one or even a number two type of starter. I think that last year his stock probably fell a little bit, and that's why they were able to acquire him for a relief pitcher.
Hey, Ben, well, I want to move on to the Nationals and their acquisition of Dan Herron. How good is this starting rotation going to be for the Nationals?
It should be a really good rotation. I think that you look again, I mean, you look at Steven Strasburg, Gio Gonzalez, and now adding Herron to that group, obviously losing Edwin Jackson, but they'll still have Jordan Zimmerman, Ross Detweiler. It's a tremendous rotation. I think that you've got to expect big things from them. And I actually do look at this group as one that would be one of the best in baseball, if not the best rotation.
Right, and I personally think that that one-year deal that they were able to do with Herron could possibly be the most underrated signing and the best value signing of the entire offseason if Dan Herron's able to reclaim or get back to the same level that he was a couple of years ago with the Angels and even where he was with the Diamondbacks prior to that.
That would be the hope. I think, again, you look at Herron, and I don't think it's 100% fair to expect him to be that same pitcher that he was in 2, 3, 4 years ago. But he's still a very capable pitcher. At the very least, he's shown that he can absorb a lot of innings, keep his team in games, and really that's what the Nationals need. They already have the number one starter in Steven Strasburg. They've got some number 1A types in Gio Gonzalez and obviously with Zimmerman too. So they don't need Herron to be a top of the rotation starter. What they get from him beyond innings will be a bonus.
Right, and then also with the addition of Rafael Soriano, what do you think of that bullpen? It's going to be.
It's going to be a strong bullpen, and it has been a strong bullpen in the past. I think that you add Soriano to that mix, it's going to be really good, and especially from the right side, you've got a lot of strong right-handed relievers there. My one concern with Washington's bullpen is that they don't have a lot of good lefties, and they lost a number of them this offseason. We already mentioned Sean Burnett, Tom Gorzolani. I mean, that's a lot of lefty arms to lose. So I think that would probably be the one weakness on their pitching staff.
Right, and I kind of want to move back to the AL West and kind of talk about one of my biggest question marks for this coming season, and that being the Oakland A's, with that young starting pitching staff and then that offense that just was kind of able to shock the heck out of people and allow this team to not only be competitive in the AL West, but even jump up on the Rangers and kind of steal that division in the remaining weeks of the season last year. What do you expect out of this A's squad for 2013?
I think they're going to be a good team. And again, this is a team that probably will be underrated going into the season because they haven't made splashy offseason moves. They didn't even make big trades the way they did 1 year ago. So you look at this group, are they going to get another 60 quality starts from Malone and Parker? If they do, that'll go a long way toward keeping them in contention. Similarly with Bartolo Colon, they got 24 really good starts from him last year. So they've got to keep that pitching going. If they're able to keep their pitching at even close to the level it was in 2012, their offense was middle of the road last year, but that was good enough. And I think that this has the makings of a contending team. It's just that when you build off of young pitching the way the Athletics do, you're not dealing with certainties.
Yeah, and then what do you think about the Chris Young deal for the A's? The A's are jam-packed in the outfield, and they were jam-packed last year. And this just gives them another quality outfielder. Do you think at some point they may try and move like a Coco Crisp or somebody maybe for a lower to middle tier starter to kind of give them a little more depth with that young rotation?
Yeah, I've wondered the same thing. I think that it's a pretty fair question. You know, you look at the A's outfield, they have a lot of depth, and I like the Young deal for them because, frankly, I'd rather have him than Cliff Pennington, which is what they gave up. So
right.
I think they did well there, but I have wondered if they might want to make a trade because even at this stage in the winter, you do have some teams, and the Mets would be one of them, who are still looking to acquire outfielders.
And then keeping it in the bay, I want to go to Jamie. He has a Giants question for you.
My question has to deal with Tim Lincecum and him being in his going into his final year of his contract. Do you think that, I guess, if he goes back to his original self, his old self, I should say, do you think that the Giants have a legitimate shot of keeping him, or could you see them maybe trading him before the deadline?
I don't see them trading him. I would be very surprised if they did. I think they do have a shot at keeping him, and there have been some reports that suggest that the Giants have already considered that possibility, and that's part of their long-term plan. So I think that it will depend, obviously, on the type of season he has in 2013. If he has an ERA under 3, like he's done many times already in his career, then he's going to have tons of interest, and he's going to be very well compensated as a free agent. But if he has an ERA over 5, like he did last year, all of a sudden the bidders are going to disappear. There are going to be lots of questions about whether he can keep pitching at a high velocity, whether he might be better off in the bullpen. So I think that really we've got to sit back, wait and see what happens in 2013, and at that point it'll be a lot clearer as to what the market for Lincecum really will be.
I kind of look at Lincecum as more of a long man or some sort of a bullpen piece at this point in his career. Do you think that's fair in saying that?
I'd say that's probably not fair, just because, and this is just my own opinion, but we're talking about someone who 1 year ago had an ERA under 3, over 200 innings, over a strikeout per inning, and I think that there aren't many pitchers who can do that. He did have a rough year in 2012, but I've got to think that he can bounce back, even with lower velocity. Part of what pitching is learning how to adapt with lower velocity, and if Lincecum is able to come back and be something close to the starter he was, he definitely won't be the first pitcher to adjust and to learn how to pitch at a diminished fastball velocity. Lots of pitchers have done that, and that's really the art of remaining a good pitcher into your 30s.
Okay, and then one more question, Ben, and the last remaining deal that we haven't gotten to is probably the most current one, and that's the Justin Upton blockbuster deal that just happened between the Diamondbacks and the Braves to allow Justin Upton to go to Atlanta and play in the outfield with his brother BJ and Jason Hayward. And this looks like it's one of the best outfields in all of the majors. But how do you think this will impact the Braves this coming year and their quest to kind of reclaim that division from the Nationals?
It definitely helps. I think that Justin Upton is a player who's already shown flashes of being an elite outfielder. And you look at him at the age of 25, he could definitely have a major impact on this team. Even if he has a quote-unquote down year, he's going to be a valuable contributor. So I really like this move for Atlanta. They give up Martin Prado, who's a really good player, and they also give up some supplementary pieces that they probably would rather have in the organization. But I like this deal for the Braves. I think that this team all of a sudden looks very young and also very capable. So I think they're a real threat to the Nationals and to anyone else in the National League.
And what would you say to people that are kind of worried about Justin Upton's home road splits? How do you think he'll do hitting in Turner Field and even hitting in the rest of the ballparks in the NL East coming up this year?
I think he'll be fine. I think a lot of players have home road splits, even players who don't hit in parks that are quite as hitter friendly as Chase Field. So I have no doubt that Chase Field is probably part of Upton's success, but I wouldn't attribute it solely to the ballpark. He has shown the ability to hit in lots of different places. And remember, I mean, he was drafted number 1 overall just because of his ability as a hitter, and that had nothing to do with the ballpark. So I really think he'll be fine. We'll have to see, but I think that he'll continue to produce on offense.
All right. I think that'll just about do it. Thanks a lot, Ben. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me.
And look forward to having you on again.
Looking forward to it.
All right. So there you go, Jamie. Talking a little baseball with Ben Nicholson-Smith, the head writer for MLB Trade Rumors, just prior to the Super Bowl.
Oh, he's on top of it. I mean, ask him any question, and he's going to give you a direct answer and very informative.
Yeah, and never too early to start talking baseball. And I thought, actually, with this show coming out after the Super Bowl, what a more perfect time to start talking a little baseball.
Oh yeah, I really like, especially being a Giants fan. I really like what he had to say get about Tim, because I completely agree 100% with what he said. And Tim learns how to pitch. I think these bumpy road is going to help him out in the long run.
I still think that Lincecum is more of a long man at this point in his career, though. If you use him out of the bullpen, that is a great, great bullpen piece. I don't know whether his body can kind of hold up to being a starter, even though he is still in his 20s. Even though I thought, because he'd been pitching the way he'd been pitching for so long, that his body would hold up better. Obviously, greater baseball minds knew more of what they were talking about than I did, and his body has started to break down a little bit more. So I don't know. If I were a team and I needed a long man after next year, I would seriously consider it, because I think the freak could be a freak coming out of the bullpen.
Well, you saw how dominant he was in the World Series or in the playoffs, coming out of the bullpen. So once he learns how to pitch, I mean, and this last season, this bumpy road that he went through is going to help him out and make him learn how to pitch.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's totally right. I think he's going to be able to relearn how to pitch and hopefully get back to that form again next year. And like I said, I don't know whether his long-term career path includes being a starter, but he's definitely going to be around for a while. So
yeah, just like Ben said, sit back and see let everything play out and see how it goes.
Yeah, and teams report, pitchers and catchers report on the 12th to spring training in Florida and Arizona. So it's just about time to get it going here.
Yes, sir.
Spring training is not too far away, my friend. I think that'll just about do it for this week's show. Thanks for listening to us this week, everybody. And want to make sure, again, to let you know that you can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/sportsexpresspodcast. You can also catch us on farmclub.net, and you can type in www.farmclub.net/thesportsexpress. And also you can find us on Twitter at Sports Express Pod. I did it again, Jamie. That's Sports XPRESSPOD. Thanks everybody for listening to us, and want to make sure to remind you again that you can catch us on our Super Bowl wrap-up special that'll be on iTunes later this week with a complete wrap-up of Sunday's game. And I think hopefully we'll get Zach Follett on there, that's been a guest on this show before, and he'll give us his analysis of the big game. So we don't have a guest lined up for next week, but probably by the time that show is done and uploaded, we will have a guest, so I'll make sure and plug that there. But again, thanks so much for listening to us, everybody, and I'm sure you enjoyed the game, but we'll see you when we see you. And I'm Scott Johnston for Jamie Zapata. Goodbye, everybody.